January 13th, 2020 to order. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Go ahead and entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Presentations. Certificate 4 Alpha, Certificate of Appreciation for Boards and Commission Members. If I could go ahead and get Mr. Scott Schleter to come to the dais, please. I'm going to read this from here so we can hear the microphone, and I'll come up there and present this to you. This is a Certificate of Appreciation awarded to Scott Schleter. So thank you for 12 years of service and dedication to the Sueur Planning Commission from 2008 to 2019. And it's signed by our city administrator and everybody on city council. Thank you. Gentlemen, if you'd like to follow me, and please thank our dedicated planning commission member.
You can sue if you do. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Next item on the docket is a presentation for Bravo for the Ridgeview LeSueur ambulance update. Mark, if you'd like to take the
All
dais,
right.
please.
I'll hand these out to you guys. We'll start on this end. And if anyone else wants one, there's handouts here. Yeah, so. Well, thanks for having me tonight. Thank you for putting me high on the agenda, which I extended a little earlier. I do appreciate that. For any of you that don't know me, my name is Mark Anderson. I'm an operations manager for Ridgeview Ambulance, and I split my time between here in LeSueur and our Waconia campus. So, asked to give kind of a brief update. We've been here, hard to believe, but it's been 3 years now. And so, we just have some data that we're going to go over, some kind of interesting facts, and then I'll just open it up to any questions that you guys might have. So, going over it, so our total runs, 2017 we did 648 responses, 522 transports. You can see in 1852 and 520 transports, and in 2019 it was 650 and 523. I was amazed running these numbers. It's rare that we ever see a volume that's that static, where I was telling Marv that it was a plus minus 2 over a 3-year period. So if you wanted to extend a bet with a buddy, I'd say about 650 for this year as well. Prior to us coming in, because it was a BLS service, basic life support at that point, they were a little bit under 500, so there has been an increase, and we've been pretty static at that.
And just to be clear, Mark, this represents just activity here in LeSueur.
The LeSueur PSA, yes. Yep. So our primary service area, which does extend into Henderson and some of the surrounding townships. So we did isolate. We do have mutual aid agreements with all of our surrounding services, which was present prior to us coming in, and it's just industry standard. But we did take out that data, like how often we go to Belle Plaine or something like that. So this is just for the LeSueur PSA. To further break that down, we do 40% interfacility transfers, so that's anything that originates out of the hospital, and about 60% 911 response. And that's pretty consistent with all of our service area, wherever we operate. That's kind of a pretty common divide. It'd be consistent with like what Arlington's doing out of Ridgeview Sibley Medical Center. Variation between the responses. So we have the responses in blue, the 648, and then the orange represents the actual transports. About a 20% difference, and again, that's pretty industry standard, and that accounts for patient refusals or going on property damage accidents and them not requesting transport to the hospital. That's why there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. Our volumes have, obviously remained consistent, and approximate to about 2 responses in a 24-hour period. But I will tell you that we've done as many as 8 in a 24-hour period. So that's our current record, is 8 calls in one 24-hour period. Response time data. So we have 2 trucks here in town. 995 is our primary transport truck, and 996 is our backup transport vehicle. Both of those vehicles are staffed by our paid on-call staff, so those are the staff that live here in town and are responding from home. So going over some of that data, so 65, this is fractile data, so not a great way to represent it in a pie chart, but if you want to follow along here, we had 65% of our responses, so 65% of that 650, let's say, from the time of the call to our on-scene time was 10 minutes or under. 75% was under 12 minutes, and then we extend out a little bit there with like another 15%, which would equate to 90% of our calls are 15 minutes or under, and that's on that transport vehicle. And this is including all priority response, so we're talking about what we consider a code 1 response, which is something that's delayed, that's non-emergent, a code 2 response, which we consider emergent but doesn't require lights and sirens, and then a code 3 response, which requires light and sirens. And just as a benchmark for you, the standard in Hennepin County is 10 minutes under 90%. Or 10 minutes or under 90% of the time, and that's for code 3 response. So we're pretty much right there in this community. Standard per state statute for this area, it's actually a tier 3 community in EMS terms. And in a tier 3, your state statute says that you have to respond within 30 minutes or less. So we're well under that. If we move on to our chase vehicle, so that's the vehicle that that we staff full-time during the day, and then generally at night Tom's Field will take that vehicle down to the store or take it home. So that one typically gets out a little bit quicker because it is staffed. So these response times, I did these based on code 3s alone within our PSA, primary service area. And 55 of our responses, we've been on scene 5 minutes or under, 70% 7 or under, and 80 9 minutes or under. So again, really good response times on that chase vehicle, and that's because that paramedic's generally ready to go with the vehicle opposed to responding from home. Chase 1 is a tiered response, and so that vehicle would respond to the same scene as the transport vehicle, and then if they required ALS, the advanced life support care, then that provider jumps in with that vehicle and goes with them. Let's see here. So the response times, I mean, in summary here, the response times, in addition to the level of service, is really unsurpassed for a community of this size and considered a rural community. I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to find anyone that had this level of service and these good response times. It would be very comparable to anything that we'd consider like an inner ring suburb. So any of your inner ring, St. Louis Park, Edina, so on and so forth, they would be probably pretty close, maybe not as good as this actually. So moving on from that, any questions on response time data, stuff like that?
I just wanted to ask,
Yeah.
maybe you could explain a little bit about what the staffing is. Are these all the individuals live here within the Sueur?
Yeah, and that's actually the next bullet point. So he asked about staffing, and so right now we continue to staff, and when we came in 2017, we kind of were up in the air exactly how we were going to staff the ambulance because we are a part-time license, so we're not required to provide advanced life support 24 hours a day, so we can do it on a part-time basis. We decided at that point that we were going to do 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's what we continue to staff. So we're staffing from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, 7 days a week with a paramedic that's a paid by the hour employee. It's been consistent with our providers over those 3 years, so that says a lot for the people that they work with in the community. They like it down here. There was some concern that it might be a little contentious just because of how this all came about, and that it was going to be hard for us to staff, and it's really been the opposite, where the guys that initially staffed are now worried that more senior guys are going to come and scoop their spots out because we bid based on seniority. So it's been pretty consistent over the 3 years with the providers that we've had down here. I have probably about the least amount of experience. I've been a medic for 16 years, and most guys that staff down here are 20 years plus, so that's always a good thing. Our additional staff, our EMTs, are the paid on call, and they're from within the community. Currently, we have 13 members on our roster, and 12 of those members we've retained from the original ambulance service. I think we started off with right around 20, but you know, a lot of the ones that we lost were kind of on the fence when we came in and weren't contributing a lot of hours prior to us coming in on the forefront. So right now we have 12 that we've retained and 13 that are fully on the roster, which is strong. I mean, I'd like to build it up a little bit. 50% of our roster does 90% of our hours, and so you know, over 1,000, and that equates to about 1,000 of on-call hours a year. So you know, you're always at risk that if you lose one or two of those primary people, that you're going to be kind of hard up at that point. Our ALS coverage, so I talked about us staffing that with paid personnel 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Well, we've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to have Tom in the community, who's also a paramedic, and staffs that vehicle at night. And so we staff, you know, ALS is 99% of the time throughout the days and during the year. And there's that little 1% when someone calls in sick and we have to cover with BLS for a short period. At night, we actually cover 85% of the time with ALS coverage. So it's pretty significant. What that equates to is Tom, I had to look up the hours because I'm like, how is that possible? I ran the hours for 2019. He did over 7,000 hours of on-call. And you know, reading that number, I'm like, how many hours are there in a year? Well, there's a little over 8,000 in a year. So he's about 1,000 shy of running 24/7 for the community. So when you see him, definitely thank him for that, because it adds just an amazing level of service to this community. To staff up and to address that, we're looking at hosting an EMT class here in the spring. And at this point, we have 3 people that are real solid candidates. And we at Ridgeview decided that what we're going to do is we'd like to get people from within the community, and we're going to interview them. And if we feel that they're real solid candidates and can give us the years of service that we're looking for, that we're going to actually pay for that class for them. And we're going to do that through Crown College and host it at the JSB. So pretty excited for that. Any questions on staffing? No? All right, so community involvement and engagement. We have remained pretty active within the community. We provide education, so that's CPR, AED, first aid, advanced cardiac life support, pediatric advanced life support, Stop the Bleed campaign for numerous public and private sector organizations. So I've had a lot of the larger industry here in town reach out, and we've done training with them. We've done education for them, that kind of thing. Also with the school district, we're getting more and more involved there. Participating in joint trainings with other first responding agencies and private groups. Recently had the LSI MCI drill. Had Cambria and Uniman facility tours, and we continue to kind of expand that relationship with Cambria, and we're going to be doing more education at that facility as well. We provide support for EMS related trainings within the school district, so they're doing 8th grade, I think they do CPR right now, and they're actually getting into an endeavor, and I hope that everything goes as planned, where they're going to start offering EMR, which is emergency medical responder, to the high school students, and that's going to be really good for us as well as the community. It's a college-based course, so the kids get college credits for it that generally go towards like a health credit. And after getting that EMR, we can kind of get them into the EMT, and that's why we're hoping that we can kind of operate as a satellite site for Crown College here in town and offer that EMT on an annual basis and get more people involved. Unfortunately, with the high school students, we can't insure people on our ambulance until they're 21 years old, which is a little bit different. Most municipalities that operate under the League of Minnesota Cities can actually hire them in at 18. We can't. We have to wait until they're 21, but it's still a good relationship to start building there. We offer paramedic home visits for specific patient groups post-discharge of the hospital. So basically what we'll do is we'll look at chronic health conditions, number of visits, so on and so forth, and kind of identify more vulnerable patient populations. And if we identify someone that we think that we can make a difference for, we'll go into their home. We do a lot of medication reconciliation. We'll kind of look at living conditions, fall hazards, so on and so forth. And those visits will typically span 1 to 2 months, 3 to 4 visits a month until we can kind of get them back on track. We don't have a huge sample size on that, but we have been very successful. We had a couple patients where we were seeing them, I think we saw one 9 times in 2 months. And after in the ER setting and after our paramedic home visits, we didn't see her at all for 6 months. So we've been relatively successful with that. Covering local sporting and community events, so football games, 5Ks, parades, all that kind of thing. And we're doing that at no expense, obviously, to whoever requests. Some of our future considerations, continue to pursue partnerships that advance the service offered within the community. So just building those relationships to make us a more cohesive service, and looking at that some of the private sector stuff that we're doing, the more that we get involved there, the better our response is going to be for those people when something does happen. The same with the schools, the more we get involved with the schools and the youth, the better off we're going to be in the future. So continue to build those strategic partnerships, continue to integrate within the hospital to better enhance the healthcare. I mean, that's just kind of an organizational goal of Ridgeviews, is to enhance the healthcare of the greater community, and we see a role in that as well. Sustainability of our current paid on-call model. As I previously stated, this is something that's always of concern. It's a concern statewide. It's nothing that's specific here. I mean, every community around here that's doing a paid on-call type model, it's always a concern. Especially when you look at half, if not less, of your staff are covering 90% of your hours. You have 1 or 2 people that get hurt or decide to move or whatever it may be, and that staffing's at risk. So fortunately, being backed by a larger organization, we do have a backup plan for that. But obviously, it costs a lot more money, and in other communities, that level of service is actually subsidized. So efficient resource allocation as our geographic presence expands. So we continue to expand in the area. We're now kind of doing what we consider a joint power agreement in Sibley County, working with Gaylord and Arlington ambulances, supplementing advanced life support care for them. I think that we will continue to grow. It's amazing how much we've grown in these last 5 years. Generally, outside of the Sueur ambulance service, we're typically invited into a community, and that's kind of how we establish our presence with Belle Plaine, all of these Sibley County communities. And so we're going to continue to probably grow in this area as the time goes by, and just kind of figuring out how to best use resources throughout all these communities to make it as cost effective and efficient as possible. And so really what it boils down to, in every community, there's always that one contentious sticking point that we want a truck in our community 24 hours a day, no matter what kind of thing. But we also have to look at what is best for kind of the geographic region, whether it's moving trucks around, kind of sharing those resources. If we looked at Sibley County, is there a halfway point that, if we're out, they can come down to, let's say, Henderson and cover us, or vice versa. If they're out, we can do that. So that's always something that in the future, especially if this current model of staffing ever subsides, that's something that we're going to have to look into. Also, service provision. So ALS, the advanced life support, or basic life support. As the staffing model further evolves, when Tom decides that he's going to hang it up, we're going to have that gap at night, and it's going to be kind of up to the community how they want to address that. It's for us to maintain financial viability, we need 1,000 transports a year. So we're about half that right now. And so it'd be very difficult for us to be able to financially provide that advanced life support 24 hours a day. And so there's always those considerations too, that how we can kind of expand beyond that. So any questions with any of that stuff?
You say you need 1,000 transports per year, and we're at 600 and...
We're at about 520.
520.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So explain to me again what other communities are doing to go ahead and supplement for the lack of not having the ALS service?
Yeah, and so we can support that run volume with the current model that we have because we have a paid on-call staff, and with even at that 12 hours a day. So when I quote that 1,000 run statistic, that is for a fully paid staff. We need 1,000 runs just to cover our costs on that. So that's a fully paid EMT and paramedic. So other communities like Belle Plaine actually help subsidize that. They're doing the same in Sibley County. So between Arlington and Gaylord, both communities, they're pulling their resources together. So they were both using us in a contractual manner to provide ALS service as well as manage their services. And so they kind of combined forces and said, okay, instead of paying for 8 days and receiving 5 days of coverage between our two communities, let's pay for 7 days between us and split the resource. Especially when you look at, okay, we're doing right around 2 transports in a 24-hour period. There is room for that to kind of share resources. So they're subsidizing. Belle Plaine helps subsidize their ambulance service as well. We're staffed there 24 hours a day, advanced life support, but it is subsidized through the city. Jordan is starting a basic life support service that we should have up and running here, I would think in probably 2 months, hopefully. And they're also going to subsidize that as well through Ridgeview. So that's kind of the unfortunate option that you do have at that point.
And because of the number of hours that Tom is covering for the Sueur, if we didn't have that, I think you said that 50% of your roster is covering 90% of the hours.
Yeah.
What would happen if we didn't have Tom? We'd have to be looking at perhaps some sort of subsidizing.
Exactly, and that's why we put that into the future considerations. Most of this presentation is pretty rosy. I mean, we look pretty awesome on paper, but we definitely want you to, kind of realize that there are those people that, he's doing 7,000 hours. I have other people that do 3,000 hours, 2,000 hours. It's a considerable amount, and that's the position that almost every paid on-call service is in right now, is that they have a very limited number of people that are doing, a majority of their call. And I couldn't tell you how many communities are kind of in that position right now. So if we didn't have Tom right now, let's say theoretically he was an EMT, then we'd also have that gap where we'd have advanced life support service during the day and then a basic life support service at night. And I don't want to take anything away from basic life support service. I mean, realistically, at the end of the day, the real nitty-gritty life-saving things the BLS providers can do. It would probably hurt the hospital a little bit more than it would the greater community, because they've come to kind of rely on that advanced life support at night, where prior to us coming in, and when Tom does decide that he's not going to run anymore, their closest ALS provider is going to be in Belle Plaine when they need to get someone out of the hospital. And prior to 2017, we were taking runs out of Chaska for the Sueur Hospital. So I'd be sitting in my ambulance in Chaska Fire Department, and all of a sudden I'd get a code 3 run from Le Sueur to Abbott. It'd take me 40 minutes just to get down there, and so that layer is also very important for the hospital as well. So.
And you said code 3, that's
the lights and sirens, yeah.
40 minutes response time just to get here.
Just to get here, yeah.
Now you do know, or maybe you don't know, we broadcast both with live stream and Facebook, and we also have our reporter here as well for Le Sueur County. So if there was a message that you would like to go ahead and deliver to the citizens of Le Sueur, this is your opportunity.
Yeah,
what do you guys need?
Well, definitely we would, like to thank our volunteers. I mean, we've gone 3 years now, and like I stated, kind of at the forefront, there was a little bit of contention there just because of how it all came about. And you guys were present during that, and and so, when I came down here in 2017, I was kind of warned, like, this is going to be the hardest assignment you're ever going to have, so on and so forth. And, now that we're 3 years into it, some of the biggest detractors at that point are our biggest proponents. There, a few of them, one guy's working for us full time now. Tom's putting in 7,000 hours, a year. So their relationship is really good at this point. We just obviously like to thank all those people because they do make this service exist to the degree that it does. I think that the citizens should also feel very fortunate for what they're receiving. I mean, to be in what you would consider more of a rural community and get the level of advanced life support that you do, and to get the run times that you do, and just the layers of care. I mean, it's so rare in this industry, and I would be hard pressed to be able to find another community that gets that. So it's pretty remarkable, and that is due to all of our volunteers here in town. So,
Okay. Fellow council members, anything from Mark? Well, on behalf of the entire city council and the city of Sueur, thank you for everything you provide for our community.
all right, yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Was this given to everybody? That showed up? That's the change. Oh, okay, good. Thank you. It just got.
Okay, so we're good. We're not changing anything on our consent agenda. Okay.
Yep, just make sure. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, we now move on to our consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and have been made available to the city council at least 2 days in advance of the meeting. The items will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the agenda and considered in normal sequence. On tonight's consent agenda, we have 3 items. City council minutes for December 23rd, 2019. You all have now the revised copy. City council minutes for January 2nd, 2020, and the disbursement approvals for January 13, 2020. Any discussion? Questions, concerns, thoughts? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Public comment. Public comment provides an opportunity for the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Persons wishing to make a comment must sign in advance of the meeting on a sheet provided and identify themselves by providing a name and address. I'd also like to point out that there is absolutely no negativity towards staff and or city council, and this is the opportunity to go ahead and have any conversation with city council. Once we move into the regular agenda, it'll be city council's turn to go ahead and take care of business as needed. Do we have a sign-up sheet, city clerk, in regards to the, okay, here we go. Okay, so both of these individuals, Ms. Kenny Sheets and Mr. Lyle Olson, are in regards to Coventry Road. We're gonna be having that as item number 7 Bravo. In this particular, I'm sorry, it's for 7 Charlie. In this particular case, I think it'd be beneficial to go ahead and have the presentation, and then we'll go ahead and bring you guys up if that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay. First item on the docket is 7 Alpha, to certifying the, well, I'm sorry, can I go ahead and get a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Regular agenda, 7 Alpha, to certifying tax increment financing district number 13. City administrator approval.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, before you, the first 2 items that we have are kind of housekeeping items related to past tax increment financing districts. I'll refer to them as TIF districts moving forward, but TIF district number 13 was authorized on May 22nd, 2000. So, 19 years ago roughly. This was a 25-year housing TIF district, a pay-as-you-go TIF. It's the most common TIF. And what that means, as we may have future conversations about TIF, is as that property owner pays their taxes to the county, which are part of the city's taxes, that money then goes right back to them. So they show that they can pay it, and then they just receive it back as part of the project. TIF is a tool that we can use to help facilitate some things in the community, and as you can see, it's been around for some time. So the developer for this project was reimbursed, had a total eligible expense totaling $339,168. They have city's been tracking these, and they've hit the maximum amount of this disbursement, hence why we're decertifying this ahead of the 25-year schedule. Just for information, this is the apartment complex located off of Kingsway, the yellow apartments there. This was part of that TIF district. What we're looking for with this is there's a resolution attached, and we're looking for a motion approving resolution R 2020-001 decertifying TIF district number 13. So I'll entertain any questions.
Anybody?
If I may,
Council members, Broadman, please.
City Administrator, in this, and I'm comparing it to the next one, I realize, in this one, there is no refund apparently to the builder. Is that right?
Correct. I'll clarify. The refund in the next one isn't to the builder. It was to the county.
Okay.
I'll talk about that
Thank
detail
you.
in the next one. But there were no overpayments on this one.
Understood. Thank you. I just wanted to be clear.
I'll entertain a motion to authorize resolution 2020-001, a resolution decertifying TIF district number 13.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next item on the docket is 7 Bravo, decertifying tax increment financing, district number 16, city administrator approval.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, again, similar to the agenda item A, this is decertifying a TIF district number 16 in the community. This one was authorized in July of 2004. Again, another 25-year housing TIF, pay as you go. This authority was reimbursed $303,809. In this location was
Senior assistant.
the senior living development located off of Plum Run and Ferry. What Councilmember Krogman was referring to is we received additional funds from this above and beyond what the $303,000 were. So what that means is the city or the county dispersed $54,000 more than they should have to the city. We had to then pay that back, and then they reimbursed us for the city's portion of that $54,000, and that total was $18,900. So essentially, what happened was the county overpaid the city, and the city had to reimburse the county for that. The city has been tracking this, and they've obviously hit that maximum threshold of $303,809. And what we're looking for, this again is the senior living facility off of Plum Run and Ferry Street, and we have a resolution looking to decertify this TIF district. I'll entertain any questions.
To be clear, decertification means it's actually removed from our accounting, our books.
Correct. It's an auditing, or our auditors look at these things, and it's basically once they hit that threshold, the maximum threshold defined in the TIF document, there's no need for it to be on our books anymore because they can't receive any more funding.
So there's no need, there's not going to be any more dollars that will be going to the county and ultimately back to the city for overpayment.
Correct. Yep, that is correct.
Any other questions, concerns, thoughts? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to authorize resolution Romeo 2020-002, a resolution decertifying TIF district number 16.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Next item on the docket is 7 Charlie, the casa 22 improvement project, approving plans and specifications and authorized advertisement for bids. City administrator approval.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, before you is a resolution looking at to approve the plans and specifications for the casa 22 improvement project and authorize the advertisement for bids. This is part of a process that's been defined throughout this project. We do have some changes as far as schedule go that we want to make sure we point out related to one, the proposed opening of Coventry Road, and two, kind of a change of sequence in the assessment hearing process. So with that, I'll turn it over to City Engineer Beanfang.
City Engineer Bing, welcome.
All right, welcome, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. So, Jasper alluded to, this is pursuant Chapter 429. This is another one of our project milestones where we have a resolution for us to approve the project plans and then ultimately proceed with acquiring bids. So as you may recall, in October 28, 2019, we ordered the improvement and at that time ordered the preparation of the plan. So we've been working on those then since that time. A project milestone here, understanding that this is a state aid project, is a submittal of those plans to the district state aid review. That was completed and we received comments back on that plan at the end of the year. And through that, the district state aid does a thorough review of the plan. They provide comments back. I would say the comments received were routine and consistent to what you'd expect for a state aid review. And notably, there was no comments received regarding the intersection of Coventry. In addition to that review, we also received the letter from the district state aid engineer and the county engineer, which was included in the packet. So then where that gets us to now is we're working on actively resolving those comments that are communicated to be necessary for the final plan approval. And then what we're asking here tonight is either a resolution approving those plans and specifications contingent on that final MnDOT approval. And our intention here is to be submitting the plan back to MnDOT end of this week. And then there's about a week to potentially 2-week period there where MnDOT will make sure that those comments have been addressed satisfactorily, and then ultimately provide those final signatures authorizing officially the ability to go out and acquire bids. So that's where we're at tonight. So as far as a project goes, the project that we've been describing now for a number of months is consistent and remain constant. The really only major project update I would say is we made an elective to remove 2 blocks at Ferry Street, County Road, County State Aid 36, I guess it'd be Ferry between 2nd and 4th. We had included that project when we made the removal of North Main Street. Understandably, the pavement condition there is deteriorated and justifies some attention. But after looking at that a little more thoroughly, it actually is feeling that it's warranting more of a full reconstruct. And so the intention with that 2 blocks is to incorporate that in a more substantial improvement project related to 36 specifically. So we've walked back on that, I guess, and to be honest with you, I think from a staging perspective, to have that corridor open as an east-west up the hill will provide some substantial benefit through construction as well. So notably, that's the only project change that you're going to see. Have a scheduling map here prepared. So obviously that's what we'll be proceeding with. As far as schedule goes, Jasper alluded to it. We have some changes to project milestones. I'd say the approval of the plans and the advertisement, those are holding originally, and progressing towards the opening of bids end of February to try to hit that spring, hopefully early part of the bidding season. That will then lead us into a summer 2020 construction, and that will be the start of year 1. And then that will involve going back to that staging map, primarily stages 1 and 2. So for folks that are referencing that, that's going to be really the heart of the project here, starting at Bridge in 93, and then also focusing heavily on the corridor of Elmwood. And then to speak to another project update is relating to the assessment process. We will be doing the assessment after the construction started, and we're targeting August and September for that. And primary postponement of that process has just been related to the benefit appraisals and getting that completed. It's a big project, and there's some work to do there. So we believe that will be an achievable schedule relating to that. And then there's a number of milestones where we'll be doing mailers and obviously calls for the assessment hearing. Intention then is the end of construction. Year 1 would be really once the season turns, so we're targeting late October, November. And through the construction of year 1, we intend that Elmwood will be constructed. probably about to the cemetery is where I'm projecting, which would include the construction of Coventry, but that will remain closed even after that initial construction, allowing time for an as-built survey to be done to verify that the construction meets the intention of the design, and then ultimately revisiting and reanalyzing the as-built condition of Elmwood and Coventry then early 2021. And then starting summer, late spring 2021, we would start year two construction. And then at that time, pending that final decision of Coventry in that early Q1 2021, we would then enact the permanent configuration of Coventry that second year of construction during the seasonable, the mild season summer months. And then ultimately progressing to that final completion of year two, or the overall project then late 2021. So then as we've been discussing, so tonight before you for consideration is a resolution that is the approving of the plans and specs, and then ultimately as a city, ordering the advertisement contingent on MnDOT final plan approval to receive and open a competitive bid process for this project. And then, of course, as you're familiar, the bids that are brought back for consideration, and then at that time, you make another decision to award and proceed. Any questions at all for me?
City Administrator approval, could you please go back to the timeline? I just want to make sure that we're all clear on something. The January 13th, 2020, today, this right here is based off the 90% plan by the county and state, correct? Even though at this time, the county and state have the 100% plan. So in essence, bids can now go out. Is that correct?
They cannot. So the clarification is, and maybe where some of the misunderstanding is, so we submit the 90% plans. It's a strategy on our behalf to get the plans in front of the reviewing agencies as soon as you can. 90% is that perceived milestone where you are very near the final. And the intention is to allow the time in the schedule for those agencies to review it. And then also, by allowing that to be the 90%, once you receive those comments back, you can incorporate it, and the submittal of the final is more of a formality at that point. It's the true final plan with all comments addressed. So that's what was reviewed and commented on, and that's what we now completed. So the action that you're taking tonight is on the final plan. That final plan is not able to be published or advertised until this action of approval is taking place tonight.
I just wanted to be clear on that.
Appreciate it.
City Administrator approval.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. So the plans that are bid on will be the 100% plans, and this action tonight is contingent on MnDOT approving that. So our engineering group, the county's engineering group, they're working with MnDOT to work through the comments that were made. We hope that, all those comments, there won't be additional comments after the 100%. There really shouldn't be, because they do a very thorough job of reviewing those plans. But just to clarify, to make sure everybody knows that the plans that will be bid on will be the ones that MnDOT approves, and they are 100%.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Corey, maybe you could just clarify something for me. I'm looking at stage 2A, which is the part that goes out past Coventry. Where does that section end? Is it like right in front of the LaBelle's area?
It is. Just to clarify the staging concept, just real briefly. So we have the stages laid out sequentially. The intention is that just to provide order. Understanding the magnitude of this project, though, and in the sense that it's a linear project as far as it's focused on casa 22, we have intentions to allow stages to be concurrently worked upon. So it's our intention that stage 1 would start, and then as well as it'd be 2A. So just so folks are clear, the intention through construction is that we have multiple crews going, and the stage 2, the idea of Elmwood is that notably once you get to stage 3, we need to provide access to that industrial park, and it's going to either have to be provided from the north or the south. So the strategy is, in year 1, we can construct to the north up until stage 3, then access will be able to be provided along what was the year 1 construction while we are actively in years 2. So where that exact stage line is gonna be undetermined, I guess, but it's a very, LaBelle's cemetery is a very good reference point.
Okay, I guess the reason I'm asking is I'm seeing then further would be to the south, I guess. Doesn't start till May, August 2021 for completion.
Correct.
So how, if we're looking at that, then how can we do a as-built verification on Coventry? You'll have to go back to the timeline, Jasper, I'm sorry. How can we do an as-built verification on, I'm trying to find the dates of,
June of 21.
right.
5/1/2020 to 11/1/20.
So how can we do an as-built verification if we haven't even completed south to verify that everything's gonna match up? How will that be completed, I guess is what I'm asking.
So the intention of the as-built verification is to be focusing strictly on Elmwood and the intersection of Coventry. So if you go back to that staging map, that falls under 2020's construction. So that would be completed fall of 2020, which would allow us then winter 2020 into spring 2021 to analyze that.
Right, but then, I mean, you go up, we're talking, what, a half mile to LaBelle, so you're talking a half mile area.
Yeah, the intent of the as-built is not to as-built all of Elmwood. The intent is to as-built what we've been analyzing for the site triangles and the decision site distances for Coventry, Elmwood and Coventry. So to, I guess, provide further clarification, my intention with the as-built verification would be maybe middle of the cemetery, something like that. So we wouldn't be as-builting all of Elmwood. We're just focusing strictly on the intersection.
So are you gonna know what the speed limits are gonna be then further south prior to that?
We will not, nope.
Because I think that was the whole, thinking back to our October conversations, I think that was a big part of what we wanted, at least my interpretation of what we wanted, was to have a speed study as well prior to opening.
If I may,
Please.
I can clarify. So we do know what the speed limits will be. They are what the existing conditions are. If the idea is that we want to wait and see what they could be, and that's what a preemptive speed study would do, is it could say, here's what we think MnDOT would say if we do this. We could do that. We could wait for the complete project to be done, but at no time will the speed limits change unless we request a speed study from MnDOT. So we do know what the speed limits are. They're the existing conditions.
Okay. That answers part of my question, I mean, but I go back, and I'd have to go back and look at my notes from the meeting back in October, but I'm 99% sure that at that meeting we talked about doing a speed study before opening that, and if we're talking construction still taking place to the south, how are you gonna do a speed study again prior to opening up Coventry?
We wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't be able to until construction ends. So I didn't, the intersection verification I didn't think included the speed study, but we can modify the schedule if that's what we want. It would just be basically keeping Coventry closed until the project's completely done, and then we can verify this both as-built conditions and do the preemptive speed study. If we want to modify it, we can.
Thinking back to our conversation in October, or whenever it was, I feel like that was the direction I was under the understanding we were going. But
And if I may provide further clarification, so the intent of analyzing Coventry is that we have assessed the posted speed, which is 30 miles an hour, and we've assessed based on the speed study we completed in the fall, the traveled speed or that 85th percentile, and that was merging close up to 40 miles per hour. I think it's a fair statement to state that if we were to proceed with this speed study, our intentions along Elmwood would be a lowering of speed, not an increasing of speed. So while I feel the speed study is a benefit, we certainly have intentions to be looking at Elmwood more critically to the south. I think for the analysis of Coventry and Elmwood, we're talking about a 30 mile an hour speed there.
And fair enough. I remember, I recall back to that conversation. There were a lot of questions asked about the speed study, and specifically that there was already construction happening on 112, and now we're talking about doing another verification when that road's still going to be closed. And I know for myself, I specifically asked for a speed study to be done once it opened, where we have the true traffic coming down 112, not partial traffic, partial car counts.
Understood.
I'll point out, I think it's obvious, but the speed limit will never go lower than 30 miles an hour. So the existing conditions will be, I think from what the conversation was with City Council, we'd prefer to have it be 30 miles an hour further to the south. I think that might be difficult to justify, but the speed limits will always be 30 unless we determine we want it to be evaluated again. But if that's the direction we would go, we could just extend that, keeping that closed until it would be June of 2022, extending it a year.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Groden, please.
I understand all this, I think it's really critical, however, the timeline's not part of the resolution.
That's correct.
This is simply getting the plan to get the bids, and I think we have to keep our focus where we are. And the intent on the timeline is, there's nothing in this motion, in this resolution actually, it's a resolution, that would drive opening Coventry. That will be a decision to be delayed and put off until we actually see how the road looks. Is that a correct statement?
That's a correct statement, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And if I may add, logistically, there's going to be at least, part of this schedule, a touch point in 2021 with City Council. If we want to wait, we can always reevaluate it, and that's what we've been kind of doing with this situation. Is it's been fluid. So if we want, to redefine that schedule, it's not necessarily related to this resolution, but you'll have ample time and ample input to be able to modify this. Basically, the opening of Coventry.
Any other questions?
I do have one other question. We have in our packet a letter where the county highway engineer indicates that the county is now the road authority. A very clear term, that's the word, road authority. Do we still have an understanding then, however, that if we're to do any kind of speed study, any kind of modifying the speed to the south of Coventry, going in other words toward 115, that would be under the jurisdiction of MnDOT and not the county? I just want to get real clear for everybody.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I have a couple other things very quickly.
Please.
Okay. Corey, if you would please, I had the opportunity to be at the Planning Commission last week, and you explained to them, if I recall correctly, the issue with trying to get the benefit appraisal for the 429. It's not just that we're putting it off, it's the issue of the availability of such an appraiser. And would you address that first, just so everybody understands it, to be clear?
Yes, I'd love to. So the benefit appraiser we have identified for this project, which to be clear, with Jasper and I's research, we have identified only 3 firms that do this sort of work, at least this time currently, in our market area. And the firm that we've identified to proceed with is the same firm that did 2nd Street. So there's some benefit just in market awareness and understanding. And so that's who we've elected and who we've contracted to do the work. They had some real life situations happen to them at the end of 2019 and the early part of this new year that has delayed some health and illness. And so, we've made the elected decision and we are allowable through the project process to delay this, to continue to move forward with that firm. And so that's the real honest answer of why we find ourselves delayed in that assessment process.
Thank you. Now if I can ask the city administrator, folks are here who sent you an email and you responded to them. Would you talk about the effect of this having the appraisal done later, and therefore delaying the hearing, etc.? What does that do for interest payments that residents would be paying?
Yeah, it's it's complicated stuff, but really, as soon as if we have an assessment roll and we certify that assessment roll, we generally give the residents that are being assessed a 30-day window to either pay off their assessment in full, or that assessment starts accruing interest at 1 point above what we think the market rate is. If by delaying it, we're delaying that process, we're delaying the interest that could be accrued by that resident. It's no real harm to us as a city, it's just extending that process a little later. Some cities elect to go through the assessment process after the project is completely done. They'll say, okay, project's done, we're gonna assess now. Generally, what we've done and what I'm accustomed to is doing that towards the front end of the project, kind of in parallel with the project process. But we have the ability to adapt to some changing conditions, and that's what we're doing. And really, there could be a financial benefit to some of the residents because of that. But just know that if you are on the project, you will receive proper notice. If you are going to be assessed, and there will be, I believe, 2 open houses that you can come to talk about that, the assessment process and what we're going through. And then you'll also have the ability, as part of the 429 process, to come to City Council. And if you want to dispute your assessment at that time, you can also do that. And City Council is the final authority on the assessment roll. They can modify that how they feel fit. Keep in mind that we know that there are projects or roads that have been reconstructed adjacent to this project, and some pretty hefty assessments have been levied to those properties, and that will be taken into consideration when the proposed assessment roll is brought to City Council. Turtle Street is one where we've seen some pretty, comparatively to 2nd Street, some pretty high assessments for some properties there. So we'll definitely take that into consideration. In general, if you were assessed on that project, you likely won't receive an assessment for this project. It just becomes quite burdensome on some of those corner lots. So all those things will be considered. We want to make sure that people understand this process is moving forward, but you will receive notice in the mail inviting you to these open houses.
If I may have one more thing, Mr. Mayor, please. Corey, I'm going to ask you a question, then I'm going to state something from the Planning Commission. You did present to the Planning Commission last Thursday. Is it correct, for the purpose of the public and for our council, would you say that the presentation you made to the Planning Commission contained this same information, is essentially the same as what you've done tonight? Is that correct?
Correct.
Looks like the same document to me. Same couple of documents. Is that true?
It is.
Okay, thank you. If I may, for the record, I'd like to state that the Planning Commission did vote, and they found that the plan that is presented is consistent with the current comprehensive plan. That was what they recommended to us. Consistent with the current comprehensive plan. Just so you all know.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
So others know, I'm a member of the Planning Commission, a non-voting member, but my responsibility is to report back to this council. So thank you. That's all I have.
Anybody else have anything? Okay. I'd like to go ahead and have Ms. Sheets please come to the podium.
Got a lot of things now to remember. Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor, Jasper. What is a resolution? That's just like is it some kind of legal document? Is it something that everybody is signing just so they know what the process is going to be? Or could you give me a definition of what a resolution is?
Well, in general, it's just guidance. It's official guidance that City Council agrees upon. For this process, there's defined resolutions needed for the 429 process. This is one of them.
So the resolution that was signed on October 28th by council members and the mayor, item number 6, you sent it to me, saying that MnDOT would specifically review Coventry Road is part of this plan. I can pull it up, the email, where it says that this was contingent specifically on MnDOT's review of Coventry Road and Elmwood Avenue.
MnDOT, we have a letter in our packet saying that they have no comment on Coventry Road.
Right, I'm speaking regarding the resolution, Jasper. The resolution, now therefore be resolved, item number 6. Approval is contingent on MnDOT or Minnesota Department of Transportation plan review and approval with specific review of Coventry Road and Elmwood Avenue intersection. Any items not approved by MnDOT will be removed from the final plans. Is that what the resolution stated? Because I just read it.
Yeah.
Okay. How does this resolution say that MnDOT would specifically review Coventry Road and Elmwood Avenue when I called MnDOT and I talked to 2 of their engineers there, and they were never asked to specifically review Coventry Road? So was that your job to relay that message, or was it Corey's? Because MnDOT was never asked to specifically review this.
So there was a process outlined, if I
Okay.
may.
Please.
to city council as far as how this approval gets processed. This was part of it. You happened to interject yourself in the middle of the process. So the idea was that Lisa Bingham would give us a letter, which she has given us a letter.
I didn't interject myself. You emailed me and you said that it was approved by MnDOT and there was no comments, and I emailed you back. I can post it on Facebook too so everybody can see this who's watching. And then that's when I reached out and I called Scott Thompson and he referred me to Lisa, and Lisa said no, she was never asked to specifically review Coventry Road or Elmwood Avenue. So I just wanted to get some clarification of who was supposed to directly make sure that this intersection was reviewed. Because I think it's important for our mayor and our council members and the city and the residents here tonight to know that it was never asked to be specifically reviewed. If you don't believe me, I have Lisa Bingham's direct phone number and anybody can call her. I think it's pretty disgusting. I've called MnDOT before, I've brought it up before, so for you to say that I interjected myself, it shouldn't be any surprise because I called to verify that things were getting done as part of this process, right? I called and I fact found, and I've done a lot of things, and I fact found that nothing was done regarding specifically on Coventry Road or Elmwood Avenue. That's why there was no comments on Coventry Road.
We have a letter from MnDOT, Lisa Bingham.
After you emailed me.
So that process is fluid. So we had 90% plans. You interjected yourself in the middle of this process.
How did I do that when you said that you'd already gotten everything back from MnDOT and you were moving forward and that this would be on the agenda tonight? So if there was a process, your process was only halfway completed when you sent me the email and said that we were on the agenda tonight?
There's no comment on Coventry Road from MnDOT. It's that simple.
Because they were not asked specifically to review it. As of January 7th, they were not asked.
At the end of the day, MnDOT commented. They reviewed it. They're saying there's no comment on Coventry Road.
Right, but on January 30th, if you go back to your timeline, MnDOT approved it.
It's January 13th today.
Or, I mean, December 30th. They approved it according to that timeline, if you go back and look at it, Jasper.
It's January 13th today, so.
I'm talking December 30th, 2019 is what the thing said.
Please, we're not gonna have this yelling, okay?
Well, he is arguing here.
At the end of the day, MnDOT has reviewed this per the resolution. We have a letter stating that they reviewed it. I don't know what the problem is.
I don't either. So as far as some of the assessments goes, are people still facing assessments like Napa and the lumberyard and everything that is off of that frontage road?
No.
No? Okay. We just wanted clarification on that. And I guess I would just really wanted the public to know that what I found. So you can say that I interjected myself or however you wanted to word it, but after my email, I did some calling and some fact finding. And also, if we recall, when I spoke to MnDOT before the October meeting of last year, they stated that per the speed study that was done and the information that they received and they had reviewed, that they would not lower the speeds any further out towards, let's say, LaBelle's or any further south on that road. As a matter of fact, they would go increase even where that Coventry Road intersection was. I know that was something that was brought up about the speed study and trying to reduce the speed south. It's not going to be, like, it probably wouldn't be.
So I think it's important to get a point of clarification here that the statements that you've made at that meeting were not correct. Scott Thompson has said that. He said that they were taken out of context and they were not true. He does not feel comfortable making those statements based on the data that was provided in the packet.
He just said it when he was reviewing, that it would be a hard sell to get it. And you said it earlier tonight, to ask that it be where it's 50 now to be reduced out like towards the airport.
That's correct, but what you stated on that day was out of context. Scott Thompson has told me that.
Really? So maybe we should all sit down and call Scott Thompson and Lisa Bingham together and we can clarify, because I'm pretty positive that everything was pretty factual. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan Wilson.
Thank you, gentlemen, for letting me speak. I've already said a lot at previous meetings. I firmly believe it. I see some very tricky comments here tonight, just recently in the conversation that you shared with my neighbor, specifically you, Mr. City Administrator, making a very broad statement that that gentleman said something in a very broad term, and Kenneth said something in a very narrow term. And so I find that to be inconsistent in providing us, the residents of this town, with accurate information to support you. I also would like to challenge the engineer. I remember at a meeting, and I think it was November, he stood there and he was asked, does the city have to have a final resolution of the intersection of Coventry and 112 to have a final plan? And his answer was, the city or the county will build 112 or cash CSAH as they decide to build it in that area. And it will be up to the city to engineer and see if they want to construct the intersection. Now tonight, I don't hear the same thing, and so I'd like to ask, is there a change there?
If I may, I can answer that question because
I would prefer to have him, please.
I can answer it.
I would prefer to have him. I've asked him. Do I not have the right to ask a person a question and expect an answer?
You don't during public comment. You don't get answers. But I can answer the question.
Thank you for the dictatorship. Answer the question, please.
So the county, it's their project. This is their project. So every aspect of this project is the county's, okay? We can give them interjections as far as what we want done. So we are telling them we want Coventry open with the final plans. There's no obligation for the city to do any engineering. I don't recall that ever coming out. This is a county project.
I'm going to take the opportunity to reiterate a little bit about my past. I'm an engineer by education. I've been involved in engineering teams, have done projects that range from $12 to $20 million. I've been involved with projects for 3M that brought a brand new product from research in the marketplace into the marketplace that cost $16 million. And I believe I know a little bit about project management and what it takes to have good project planning. I haven't seen, and this is that kind of work here, with the point that I just made. The gentleman stood there and said, we're going to build it the way we want to. City, you're going to have to do it the way you have to make it connect. But if any of you have been out to that intersection, you know that as Coventry comes to the west from the top of the hill near my house and Kenna's house and Daryl Colden's house and drops down, the two streets do not intersect in one level plane. So you have a street going downhill being trying to intersect with a street that's flat. And it's an engineering task that's not minor. It's a major one. And somebody pointed this out. And they said, well, we'll just have to rearrange the roadway. Well, you're going to go uphill on Coventry to the top of the hill and resurface it? Are you going to take 112 and come down off the hill by the cemetery as you come north, then make a flat spot where the intersection is, and then continue down to where 112 is supposed to sit? To me, that's a point that's well beyond the capability of this city council, and I don't think that Bolton Minnick has been doing the job necessary. So I see, according to the schedule, that we're going to get out a year or more, and we're going to say, oh, it's time to see if we want to connect to what the county has built for us. Not very good from an engineering point of view, from a 50-year engineering person. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, anything? City administrator approval, anything? City engineer, anything?
Roll call.
I got one quick comment.
Councilmember Kirby.
I'm looking forward to the project. I think it's gonna be exciting, and it's gonna be good for the community, so. Moving out Coventry and everything, I think it's exciting. We'll see what things bring. Sometimes it's kinda hard to look things over and just try to imagine things until it's actually here and we can actually see it and it's tangible. I think that's the time to kinda consider some things.
What's the requested action is, I'm seeking a motion now to approve resolution Romeo 2020-003, approving the plans and specifications and ordering advertisement for bids contingent upon MnDOT state and plan approval. I'll make the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second.
Is there any additional discussion?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I think we have to understand that in this plan, Coventry Road is not automatically to be opened.
That's correct.
Everybody has to understand that. It's not an automatic, it's not the plan. It is a possibility in the future, and the council will address that as the county engineer, highway engineer, I believe is his title, has indicated. We have to go to that office, whoever's in it, and go one way or the other with what we're gonna do. But it will not happen. The road will stay like it is until this council takes some action. Is that correct, Mr. City Administrator? And go ahead.
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to be real clear, so I know.
Yeah. Quote unquote from the county engineer. Okay. With that being said, it is the city's wishes, if it's the city's wishes to open the connection of Coventry Road to Casa 22, I would like an official request addressed to the Sueur County Highway Engineer from the City Council stating this. This is down the road before any of this is going to happen. To Councilmember Kirby's point, I think that there's a lot that's going to be happening between now and the time any decisions can be made regarding whether Coventry is opened or if it stays closed. Okay? Any other comments, questions, concerns? We're done with the public comment now, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. We now move on to 7 Delta, well number 2, seal project final pay request. City Administrator.
I'm Mayor Haig, members of City Council. Before you is a pay request, the first and final for the well number 2 sealing project that we had. I've had some questions come up about why we're bringing this forward as this was approved. This is essentially on par with a street project of some sort where we have a contract and we've gotten to the end of the contract and we have the final pay request and we want to approve that to kind of make the project final. So you'll see a picture here. It's kind of difficult to see with the new fallen snow, but there was a well house there at some point in time that has been removed and the well has been sealed. The Minnesota Department of Health has been notified and they have record that this well is now sealed. Took 25 yards of neat cement to seal the well, so that's quite a bit of cement. I believe the well total depth was 272 feet, the casing was 242 feet, so pretty deep well. What we're looking for is a motion approving the final payment, estimate number 1 for $51,435 for the sealing of well number 2. Keep in mind the original bid amount was $54,500, I believe, so a little bit under what the bid amount was.
Is there anything that can be done with that property now that well has been sealed?
Yeah, we'll look at it. Potentially you can have a 70-foot by 145-foot lot if we split that lot up. Really, it'd be challenging to put a house on that corner where the well was because the well's in kind of the middle of the lot, but it would conform with the neighborhood potentially, so community development director's looking at that to see if that's a potential infill lot that we could market potentially to be built, a house built on it in the future.
Well, with the well being right in the middle of the property, would it be a possibility that perhaps both the east and west sides of that property would be available to the neighbors for potential purchase for maybe an additional garage or something of that nature?
We could look at it. I think you could build one full house, one complete lot, with a full house on it, and then keep the well portion as city property, and then use it for something. I think that would be the recommendation. We could look at some other options as well.
Any other questions or concerns? I'll entertain a motion for payment of estimate number 1 for $51,435 to Fine Well for sealing well number 2.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. We now move on to 7 Echo, capital lease purchase authorization for Kinetic Leasing. City Administrator approval.
Mayor Haig, members of City Council, this is an item for approval related to our capital lease program. This is for payment to Identisys, which took over from Stanley Dorr for our access control at our city facilities. With this amount, we've added some access control to things like joint services building. We've added some additional access controls to doors throughout the city and swapped it over to a brand new system. What we're looking for is a motion to approve the submission of the payment request form to Kinetic Leasing, so that Identisys can get paid for the work they did.
Just to be clear, with Identisys, what is the overall future regarding our city-owned facilities?
Yeah, we'll continue to look at where we need access control. One of the areas we'll focus on, or we are focusing on, is the community center. One for security, making sure that there have been thefts there in the past, not too many, and just really controlling access to the community center so that we know who's in the facility. That's one of the bigger ones that we'll see coming in the future.
Okay, good to know. Any other questions or concerns?
Yes, I have one.
Councilmember Grover.
I take it at this point, some of this is capital, and what I'm trying to say is it's putting equipment in that this is like a one-time cost for some of this, to be clear.
Correct, yep. So door controllers, basically everything's wired using network cables. Those network cables then, go into a controller. Those are one-time purchases. We do have a couple of these panels on hand because sometimes there's electrical surges, things like that affect those. I think probably a year ago we had some issues at the community center with that exact situation, and it took some time to get these panels ordered. So we do have at least one on hand at all given times.
Okay. Anybody else? Just to be clear, this is a leased item, correct?
It's on the capital lease, so we will make payments over 7 years for it, but it's essentially we'll own it at the end of that.
So this is in essence recession-proof, just in case something should happen with the economy, where these items could be removed, or how does that work?
We have some flexibility with it. Really, in the sense, it's not like a vehicle, but it'd be more difficult in that sense to remove it and give it back if we choose. But we used it as the funding mechanism for this.
Okay. Anybody else? Entertain a motion then to approve the submission of payment request form to Kinetic Leasing for the access control systems from Identisys in the amount of $38,483.34.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second? Okay, that's good.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion is carried. Comments, reports, and items of appreciation. We're going to start out tonight with Councilmember Sullivan.
Nothing to report other than the transit meeting tomorrow at 2:30 here.
That's going to be here in Sueur.
Yep, from Minnesota River Valley Transit. And then we do have an EDA meeting at 5 o'clock.
That's
2 weeks
tomorrow.
from
That's 2 weeks from now, right?
Oh, and our RPAC meeting got moved to Thursday this week, so we weren't able to get quorum last week, so we moved it to Thursday.
Then our back meeting is what, 6 p.m. or 5 p.m.?
Here as well.
Okay. And EDA meeting would be 2 weeks from
Yep.
today, 27th. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Grobman.
Yes, the planning commission met last week. I've already indicated one of their actions. They have 4 members who are starting new terms. 2 of them are new. 2 are new and 2 are returning. Returning members are Dan Ryerson and Melissa Huntington. And then Julie Sheehy and John Debol are the new members, and they were all sworn in last week and have begun their new terms. And also, that commission voted to have a chair and a vice chair. The chair this year will be Melissa Huntington, and the vice chair will be Jack Roberts.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay, let's go with Councilmember Huntington.
As Councilman Sullivan said, MRVT tomorrow at 2:30 here. I have an HRA meeting this Wednesday at Hillside Court. It's at 4 o'clock, always open to the public. And also the Highway 169 corridor meeting scheduled for this Thursday in St. Peter. But I didn't get where it's going to be located.
It's actually going to be in Sueur.
Oh, it is?
Yep. So there was some confusion when he sent out the invite, but it will be here in Sueur.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, 2 to
Yeah.
3. He said. Okay, well, thank you for answering my questions. I want to find that out.
Okay.
Other than that, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kirby.
Yeah, I'll try to be as brief as I can. Minnesota Hospital Association, we met on Friday through Sunday up in Coon Rapids. So we had good attendance from our local board. I think we had about 85% of us up there, which would have been about 6 of the 7 of us. A lot of breakout sessions, strategic planning, board protocol, governance. So that was all very interesting. And every year they kind of have an underlying crisis they like to talk about a little bit. And this year it happened to be mental health awareness. So that was quite interesting also. And along with what Mark had to say earlier, it was nice to hear from the Ridgeview Hospital because of the relationship we have with them that's been going on about 3 years now. Talking with our board up in, at our weekend meetings, I think this transition we've had with them has been going wonderful. And we've had a lot of positive feedback on it. So we're looking forward to continuing to move ahead with Ridgeview and see what it brings. That's it.
Okay. I'd like to thank you personally for taking your time to be up there representing Sueur for that weekend. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So we'll transition from to Ridgeview. Great. Okay. City Engineer Bankheim, anything, sir? Director Lawrence, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. City Administrator Kugel?
I'll be brief. Staff is participating in this event that Rotary is putting on at the high school on Wednesday. It's a reality fair. I think the intent is to try to get some of the high school students to understand some of the challenges with budgeting and such in the real world. So it's a good event. I'll be there. Finance Director Dowd will be there, and the police chief will be there as well. So I'm looking forward to that. We are working on our the Parks Open Space Trail System Master Plan. That's going to be coming. It's going to be presented to RPAC on Thursday as far as the draft plan, and likely City Council will see that a full presentation based on some of the comments from RPAC in early February. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to moving that along.
Okay. Anybody have any closing thoughts? Entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.